Welcome if you're a parent watching this on EARJ TV. Welcome this morning. Now, the goal of this presentation is to give you the big picture. So don't worry about the small details. Those will come to you through email and by letters that we send home. It's just designed so that you can ask questions of the trip coordinator at Gávea, that's me, and also that you get an idea of the big picture. So my name is Kenneth Horrocks. I've been at the EARJ for 4 years and organizing trips for young people is one of my big passions in life. So I run about 10 trips at the EARJ. You might have heard of the Geology Botanical trip last year, the Sugarloaf rock climbing trip, the rafting trip. Those are my trips. And 2 years ago, I guess it's between 2 and 3, okay? If you'd ask the math department. And we did these trips to the Sapientia. So I was organizing those. And I've been asked by Dr. Howe to do it again. Working with a great team. Catherine Phillips is here, assistant principal for Gávea, who's also helping me. Ms. Marcia Horenstein is also working with me, and I work very closely with them, and also with Valeria, our wonderful secretary. So, very excited, because for 2 years we couldn't do this, and we felt that the students really needed it, and it hurt us that we couldn't offer them this experience. So we're so happy that we can. Again, here we go. It's going to be on October the 18th. Now, if you look at that week, you might ask, why aren't we starting on Monday? And the answer is, it's right after our break. And we thought, when you really take a look at it, having a school trip where everybody goes right after a holiday with no break might not be a good idea. You might come back from Buzios and forget completely about the Sapientia. Hopefully not. We will be reminding you, but there'll be one day of grace, a check-in day, a day where you can come to school and ask, oh, are we really going tomorrow? Yes, we are really going tomorrow. Okay, do you need a waterproof? Yes, you do need a waterproof. Are you feeling well? Yes, I'm feeling well. So we'll have that check-in day, which means we'll be going from the 18th to the 21st, Tuesday to Friday, back in time for the weekend. Because we know that they'll be tired. We intend to make them tired so that they'll sleep nicely, and you'll get to see them and hear about the wonderful time they've had. Why do we do these trips? So, first of all, we want to give them an experience of leadership in a safe way, in a supported way, and putting them in a situation where they need to take decisions, take responsibility for a small group. And if they get it wrong, they can reflect on it. They can learn from it. So we've designed activities where they can do exactly that. Brazilian culture. Why aren't we taking them to the Antarctic? So many wonderful places, Galapagos Islands, so many places to go. Well, we want to do that. But we think it's great for them to understand some key elements of Brazilian history and culture, and we've chosen these places because they are important. So the grade 7 trip to the dentures is important because of the gold rush, the gold economic miracle, the revolution led by the dentures. It's a nice piece of history. We want them to go there. Because we're the American school in Brazil. Team building. We could do this trip at the end of the year. It'd be so much easier. So much more time to prepare. But we really want them to bond as a team. Because at the EARJ, the generations are very significant. They're going to go year after year with these friends, we hope, and graduate together. We want them to be a great team We want them to feel proud of what they've achieved at the EARJ. And we've found that bonding them together at the beginning of the year helps that year go smoother. Those relationships between each other and relationships with the staff as well. Because many of the teachers who teach them will go on those trips. How are we going to do it? So there's two ideas behind the activities which we've designed. One is something we call transformational learning experiences. That's something which you remember forever. We have something which is not just, doesn't just have an effect on you as an academic. It has an effect on you. And I can tell you, during the holidays, I had a few messages from my seniors. So I teach biology at the DP level, and I'm teaching grade 10 as well. And I had some students reach out to me, and I bet they don't remember my lesson. Not all of them, but they were saying, Mr. Horrocks, we just want to say we will remember forever when we did the Group 4 project on Sugarloaf. And you made us do the trail. And we went back behind the scenes to see the things that we're not allowed to see of the general public. Remember that forever. And that's the kind of experience we want. We want to do something ultimately that we cannot offer at school. So it's not the same stuff we do at school, because we can do that at school and we're good at that. It's to try and provide them with something which was different. And we're going to go into the outdoors. So nature's a great teacher. Young people learn in an easy way about consequences, simple consequences. I left my raincoat. I didn't feel like carrying it, and now I'm wet because it's raining. You know what? I was in a hurry, so I didn't try and put the tent up, and now it's fallen down on my head. Nature's a great teacher. Okay, simple, easy, and safe. No one has to tell you you did it wrong. You find out. And also, it's beautiful. Especially into the dentures. Has anybody climbed the Lomo de Saint Juan? Oh, it's wonderful. It finishes on a beautiful waterfall. It's that thing you see. You've been to the dentures. Anyone been to the dentures? You see that wonderful hill that rises up, sloping up behind you with a rock. We're not going to rock climb it. I know you know I'm the rock climbing coach. If you know that, we're not going to rock climb it. They're not ready for that, but we're going to climb it. It's beautiful. So it has an impact on them. It teaches them to value it as well. You know, I've often found taking students into outdoors, say 50, we're going to have 50 grade 7s. 50 grade 7s in a room is a nightmare. But 50 grade 7s on a mountain is peace. You know, it's natural. Also something called grit, which is learning to deal with failure and not give up. This is really important. What we don't want is students who get to grade 12 and then fail a test or summative and then burst into tears. By the time they get to grade 12, they should say, you know what? Oh, I failed this time, but I'm going to try again. I'm not going to give up. Because I want to be a doctor. Or I want to be what it is that they want to be. So they have opportunities to try things, fail and try again. Like trying to make a bowl out of clay, a pottery bowl, which is really hard. Okay? I know that I failed when I first did that. How do we do this? So they're in teams. And each team has a EARJ teacher assigned to look after them. And a treehouse. Treehouse are the agency, which we used last time, which we're using again. So we built a relationship with them. It's the same people running it. And we're really happy to use them. Be a treehouse person responsible for team and an EARJ teacher. It may be teacher responsible for 2 teams. And they will gather together in those teams. They'll reflect on the day, how it went. Joelle, you were terrible when you were leader of this activity. What were you doing? Joelle, oh, I understand. I can think about it again. Okay. Oh, you were fantastic, Lisa, with that You know, when the way you led us through, when we were doing the hike, the way you kept us motivated, fantastic. And in the morning, they'll come together as well. Something else is going to happen in the morning and evening, and that is we're going to take their phones. Because we don't want students love their phones, especially middle school. And in fact, they're a great risk. You know, because phones are designed by, not phones, but the applications by experts to make them extremely addictive. And we know that. We want them to take a break from those phones and also talk to each other, be a team, bond together. But they'll have them back in the evening to talk to you and tell them that they're okay, and you can check how they're doing. We know that's really important. It's nice when someone on the team takes some photos and memories, but how are they going to do that if they don't have their phones? You know, if you're like me, you have a couple of old cameras at home. Most people do. When everyone started using their phones to take pictures, when the cameras became amazing on phones, if you've got an old camera at home, you know, that you could doesn't connect to the internet, that just takes some photos and you don't mind them taking, that might be a great bit of kit to have. Not everyone needs one. They don't need to take photos. They can also document in writing. This is my diary of the Sapientia. So the Via Sapientia trip is a big part of what we do. It's a very old tradition. If you talk to people like Mary Sarr, Miss Nazy, they will tell you 20 years ago Via Sapientia this was how it was. Okay, so it's a big part of what we do. It's very important. And we think it's important for every student to have the opportunity to do it. So we'd encourage all students to attend. Now there's two reasons why a student might not be able to attend. One reason being health. Sometimes we get unlucky. You get sick right before the trip. I've been on trips where I've had to turn students away, shaking, coughing and sneezing. And they showed up anyway because they're so excited, they want to go. But if you're sick, it's not a good idea. And the other might be to do with behavioral expectations, which I'm going to talk to in just a minute. Safety is our priority. So we're taking those students, our students, out of school, out of Rio. We're going to be with them all the time. And we really want to make sure that that is safe. So the first thing is that we're not going to take them to do anything we haven't risk assessed. So risk assessment is when a specialist team visits a site where an activity is going to happen and does the activity and looks and makes sure that there's nothing there which could cause a risk. And what risks there are, there's steps put in place to minimize them. Okay, so that the pre-visits trips will happen with Thor. In fact, next weekend, there's a team of the EARJ going to visit all of the activities. On the trips, we will work with our head of security to make sure that the EARJ security teams are present on the trips. And they're with us all the time as well. Do you know what Outward Bound is? Anyone? Outward Bound is a very respected, one of the best outdoor education, adventure learning programs in the world. So I worked with them when I taught in Costa Rica, and they trained their instructors to a very high level to respond to emergencies in the wilderness. One of the biggest, best qualifications that they offer. The instructors have that qualification from Treehouse. So we know that if something does happen, you know, they know what to do. So that's very important. And our staff we're going to help as well. Because the thing about our staff is they know the students. That's the very important part too. Student expectations. Now there's a piece here of the expectations before the trip. When we say that we want all the students to attend, we do. But there's a part where if a student is not meeting basic expectations in class, then we might question whether they could meet basic expectations on a mountain or in a forest or somewhere where the risks are much higher. So that piece, Dr. Howard and Ms. Phillips, you want to add something, jump in here, we'll be talking to Ms. Marcia Einstein, and if there's individual cases where a student is not meeting basic expectations, we will talk to them, we might talk to you, we might reach out and say, we really want to make sure that the student is meeting expectations. Ms. Phillips, would you like to say something?
Well, I'll just add on a little bit. I think you can all hear me without the microphone. Hi. Hello, families who are online. The expectations will be made very, very clear to the students, and we intend to speak to them a lot. These trips are highly motivating because they realize that a lot of trust on your part as parents is required of them, because you're allowing them to go with their teachers in the school for an extended period of time. They see it as a rite of passage in some ways. They see it as a tradition of the school. So they really do understand the meaning of this trip in a way that we will, of course, explain to them and reinforce, but they also realize that this is something, and they're important, and they rise to the occasion. When I first came to the school in 2019, we didn't have any trouble at all from grade 7. It was perfectly fine, very smooth. Of course, as we have these meetings with the students during the day while they're traveling, we'll meet with them before, as we're meeting with you, to go over the expectations and have them ask questions. I think they may be very, very excited, and that's a joy, right? You know, of course they'll be noisy. Of course, that's what we want. Children are supposed to be noisy. That's part of youth and the exuberance of life. So this isn't something where we expect much more that's different, except for a higher level of safety and precaution, because they're in a new environment, right? But there'll be the teachers and the treehouse personnel. So I don't think that the behavior issue is really something that we're overly concerned about, but we'll remind them of this in the coming weeks to motivate them to be on their best behavior. So once they get far away from home and mom and dad, everything's smooth. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Just some common sense ideas there. So our values are that we were respectful, responsible, careful, and kind. And we're going to ask the students themselves to get involved and start thinking and reflecting before the trip how they can show these values. In advisory, we're going to work in advisory, where they're also going to be designing t-shirts, possible logos. So there's going to be a competition. I remember the logo 2 years ago was wonderful. The competition for students to design a logo which will be used by everyone for this Sapientia. So there's a lot of work that happens in advisories on expectations, and they do get very excited. They won't sleep the first night, no matter what we do. We'll do our best. We know that it'll be so exciting, but we're aware of that. So we're going to go to. This is one presentation for all, so I'm going to go to ours. Tiradentes is a very exciting trip. All of them are exciting, but this is exciting for me particularly because I'm going to lead it. And Miss Phillips is also coming with me.
I'm excited.
So we will be there in Tiradentes. So upon the Brazilian history and culture, they're going to be learning about the gold rush in Brazil, and the way that there's that interesting interplay of the way that history played out with the gold miners, with the Portuguese, and with slaves, and the record that those groups of people left on Tiradentes. If you've been there, it's very interesting. They're going to navigate that on their own in groups using a map and a compass, which is interesting. Okay, they might cheat and use a little bit of GPS as well. But we do expect them to be able to, we'll give them bearings to follow. And they'll need to follow them. And I think some of the teachers are very excited in geography and math that's going to happen. Because that's a great skill. It's something which is almost impossible to teach in the classroom meaningfully, but great to learn that. But that's part of outdoor education. So they'll orienteer. It's a wonderful experience. It's like a treasure hunt for information around the centre of Tiddedetches. We found that to be much better than having them follow a guide and listen, for an hour. They discover it. So that's a really nice piece, which Treehouse put into place. Now, Tiddedetches is also the heart of artisanal crafts. And there's so many people with special skills which are rare and getting rarer these days. People who know how to make stuff with their hands. And we're going to get them to do that. Soapstone carving, make things out of clay. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly which ones we will do, because on the pre-visits we'll make those final judgments. When we go and visit and say, what is your facility like now, 2 years later? So we've called places, we know that they're still offering this, but we have to visit. But they'll do those wonderful things. Fantastic. And there's also some really interesting geology. So when you climb at Lomo de São João, we're going to try and get them to understand how that works. There you are. That's actually a photo of me 3 years ago on a pre-visit, 2.5 years ago on a pre-visit, trying out the soapstone. So much fun. And there they are. Well, the waterfall is the waterfall you see at the end of the Lomo de São João. Very beautiful. And on the hike. For the hike, we do want them to have a waterproof. That's the group, the last group of 2019. I recognize some of those faces. About to set off on their Lomo de São João hike. Okay, so, and the beautiful crafts. The hotel's amazing as well. Okay, let me go to the end. Now this part here, you don't need to write down, take notes, take photos. We're going to send this electronically. We're going to send home a packet of information. Not next week, but the week after. Okay? So, there are some things which we'll need from you by September 5th, which is still away from now. Confirmation of trip attendance. Yes, we're coming. Hoping that is the case. Medical consent form. Okay, my child is well enough to do this trip. Authorization to travel form. And this thing is a national Brazilian law requirement. There's a piece there where you have a travel authorization with parent IDs, and that needs to be authenticated. So if you know a lawyer friend, call them and say, hey, I need to get this done. And if you have questions about how to do this, our secretary of middle school, Valeria, is a perfect person to advise you. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she can be a great resource. There's going to be, the cost of the trip is going to be, and I'm not presenting it now, because when we go on the pre-visit and we look at the activities, we may decide to choose one activity over the other, which will affect the price slightly. But it's more or less 3,500 reais. Para cima, a little bit more maybe. So that's the ballpark figure. And we're going to ask for 2 installments, September 15th and October 15th. Right before the trip, we'll send out another package. So there's one package coming the week after next with all of this information, and then there's one right before the end, which is much more practical. What do you need to bring? Where exactly are we leaving? What exactly we're doing every hour of the day? And so on. Emergency contact information that will come out. And I think probably something good to have in your mind at the moment is this. Okay, I'm going to hand some forms in on September the 5th. Just some forms. No money, just, yes, we're going. These are our documents. So that's a nice thing to have in your mind at the moment. Okay. It's slightly different for Brazilian and non-Brazilian students. It's worth noting there. A little bit different. It's still an ID, so it's just a different ID. Okay, I think I've been on time here. Any questions that anyone wants to ask at the moment?
You said you would take away their phones and then give it back to them, but when they go to bed, they
Yes.
don't have their phones.
They have their phones in the evening. They do.
Through the night?
They do. We don't take them away at night. Yeah.
Can we request that you do for some?
Yes. If you want to talk to us about a specific arrangement,
Let's talk about that, because again, my experience has always been that the phones are taken away the phones are given back for 1 hour and then they're recollected. So I don't want to judge how this school's done it, but I've been on these trips before and we've had these trips done and kids get 1 hour. I'm not saying the EARJ has to do this, but in the previous school, it was for grades 6, 7, and 8. You get 1 hour on your phone. But again, Kenneth and Catherine will have experience, and if they say, Howard, we can't do that, these poor kids are going to shrivel up and die, then that's a different situation. I don't think they should have their phones at night. But again, I haven't been on these trips.
I'm notorious for being anti-phone. And the students know that I don't want them to use their phones ever.
So I think that's something we as a team will talk about. I'm new to this, and Kenneth's been great at organizing and sharing the slides. When I heard that they got their phones at night, in my mind, I went back to Europe, where they got their phones for 1 hour, communicated to their parents, then they were taken away. We'll talk about that as a team. Otherwise, number one, they're not going to sleep, and they're going to be dead tired. But it's amazing what this lighted screen will do to keep you awake at night. Number two, I'm going to get all these complaints about this kid put this in WhatsApp with that kid, and they're on your school trip, so it's your problem. You better parent them, because I'm not going to deal with it right now, and I'm going to say, well, they shouldn't have their phone. So we do. Let's talk about that. My preference is you get your phone for an hour. We'll help make sure that they're charged, so that the next night you can get it for an hour. And then certainly on the bus ride back, I don't have any issue with them having their phones. But boy, overnight in those rooms,
Because the monitor
I don't think it's going to
their team
work.
lead will be close to them, right? So if they
Sure.
were to need something or whatever, they can, I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. There might be some things that I'm missing where we say, Howard, the logistics of that become problematic. But my understanding is in these contexts, kids will all have dinner together. There's usually activities or reflection or something that's planned. And we can say, look, from after dinner, from 7 to 8 or whatever, you get your phone, you do your thing, you turn it in, we collect it, you do that. If we can make that logistically happen, we would.
And so, I mean, after the pre-visits, and one of the questions we have on the pre-visits, we're collecting phones. Okay, what do you have here to help us store them? And we will have trip leader meetings. And so some of these details will be established, and we'll talk about this again.
Kids do not need any other electronics, no iPads, no Game Boys, or whatever they use, because they can find ways to text with something that's not a phone. So no laptops, there's no reason for any of that, and really nothing of great value, period, because we don't want to take the risk for that. But we'll talk about the phone.
Sure.
We'll work on a plan that
We'll work
says
on
no
it.
phones in the bedroom.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, we'll talk about it. And I think it depends. Some, you have trips where after they've climbed Loma Saint-João and built a pottery clay, then after dinner, doesn't matter what's happening, they're out. But that has to be threshed out. And some of the details will not be threshed out until after the pre-visits and the trip leader meetings, which we'll have. So this is the big picture stuff. Anything else? I think I'm on time to finish. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm sorry,
one more.
the arrangements, the hotel, so they are going to be together, and then the leader is going to be near them, or how do they control?
So part of the prerequisites process is to design a rooming plan. The room plan is, first of all, boys over here, girls over there, teachers and treehouse staff in the middle, and then where do the hall monitors stand? Where are the treehouse staff going to be watching corridors? And then, okay, so they're going to be in rooms of small groups, say 3 to 4, and they're going to not be on their own, not going to be in huge groups, and then they're going to choose who they want to share a room with. When I say choose, they submit preferences through advisors, and then they're assigned to a room, balancing their preferences and the views of their advisor and Monsieur Einstein, who works with us on these. And so that's part of it. And yeah, so at any point in the night they have a problem, there's going to be EARJ staff and treehouse staff just outside that they can talk to. If you've got a nosebleed, or I do, you're going to be able to find. We don't sleep a lot on these trips, we drink a lot of coffee. I drink a lot of coffee anyway. But yeah, so we'll be there to support them. They're not going to be left alone at night.
This is a group that they are very excited because they haven't been in anything, because they were about to go when the pandemic arrived.
They are going. The first night is going to be. They're going to be so excited. Oh, they won't sleep the first night. We know that. But you know, we will be excited too. So we can all be excited together. And it's as Ms. Phillips said, it's a joy. It's a joy for them. It's a joy for us that we can do these trips and offer this again.
Thank you for bringing it back.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, please help yourself. There's enough